So now we're going to move on to the application itself. And so I know that you've got a copy of the application in front of you. So this is page 1, the cover page. As it says at the top, the application is due no later than Friday, December 4th at 4:30 p.m. So your application actually needs to be in our Fairbanks DCRA office by that time. Not postmarked, not in the mail, but actually arrive in our office by that time. So I'm just going to go over some of the important things of this part of the application. First of all, the name, that's going to be the city or borough that's applying. And then the DUNS number. If you don't already have a DUNS number, then contact our office. It's fairly easy to get one, but it can be a little bit tricky. There are some websites that will try to charge you money to get a DUNS number, but you should not be paying any money to get a DUNS number. If you're having trouble with that, just call our office and we can help walk you through that. So the contact person here, that is the person that knows the most about your application. So that's probably the person that wrote it. If the mayor doesn't know anything about your application, then don't put the mayor's name there. We want this person to be able to answer our questions if we need to call them. And likewise, that phone number, we want that to be the phone number of the person who knows the most about your application. Now this section right here, the eligibility category, you guys are already familiar with the 3 project categories. Most of your projects are going to fit under the community development category. That's, most infrastructure projects, landfills, community buildings, designs, and construction, those types of things. Most of those are all going to go under community development. Planning is more like for feasibility studies or things of that nature. Designs go under community development, not planning. And then special economic development is a job creation category. And if you are going to apply under that category, please contact us. There are a lot of special requirements for those applications. If you're not sure which category your project should fit under, give us a call and we'd be happy to help you out. Or you can look at the application handbook and that'll give you a lot of information about project categories. For the proposed budget section, this top line, the CDBG request, that is only what you are requesting from this program. Those other lines are your match contributions, both cash and in kind. And then that bottom row should be all 3 of those, the total of all 3 of those lines. That's your total project cost. Not what you're applying for from CDBG, but the whole project cost. And those should match the numbers on the inside in the budget section of your application. For the authorized signature, we will always accept the mayor's signature. We suggest that you just get the mayor to sign it because we will always accept the mayor's signature. If somebody other than the mayor is going to be signing your application, they need to be specifically mentioned by name in your authority to participate resolution. That is a required document that you'll find in the appendix packet. But just keep that in mind. We will always accept the mayor's signature. If the mayor is not signing this, that person needs to be specifically mentioned by name in your authority to participate resolution. So the first criterion of this application is the project description and selection and citizen participation plan. This is the section of the application where you show us in detail what your project is about and why and how you selected it. So this first page is the project description. We have some tips here, some questions for you that might help you guide yourself in your project description. Talk about your current conditions, what's going on right now in your community, what you specifically are going to do with this money. So are you applying for design of a public safety building? You need to let us know you're going to hire a contractor. You're going to go out to bid. Maybe you have a construction project. Are you going to use local force account labor? Or are you going to put this project out to bid? What exactly are you going to do for them with this money? Are you only going to buy materials for your project? We want to know specifically. A lot of times in applications, we'll hear a lot about current conditions, but not about what exactly you're going to do with the money. And then what problems does your project address? So if your current conditions, presumably there's some things that are not going well, and that's why you want to do this project. So how is your project going to specifically address those current conditions? And then finally, how are your local residents and community members going to benefit from this project? After this thing is complete, what kind of a benefit is it going to have for the community? When you're doing your project description, you don't want anyone to leave with questions. You don't want anyone to be unsure about what you're talking about. So especially for this section, I would really recommend you have somebody read it who doesn't know anything about your project and see what kind of questions they ask. The fewer questions the application selection committee has after reading this section, the stronger your application will be. The next page talks about the citizen participation plan and selection process. Part of this is your public meeting, which we already talked about. You want to, like it says here, attach minutes of your public meeting. You also want to attach the notice that you used, the sign-in sheet, any other backup documentation from any other kind of planning you did for your public meeting, notes from other sorts, if you took a survey or if you met with some stakeholders in your project, include notes from those meetings in there as well. So that's the first piece, and the required piece is the public meeting. Maybe you had a committee come together to try to look at what needs your community has and how CDBG projects might be able to address them. Like I said, any informal meetings that you held, surveys, community-wide meetings, planning documents, letters of support are really good. For instance, if you are doing something to benefit the children of your community, you could get letters of support from the school. If you are perhaps building a community center, the folks who are going to use the community center, get some letters of support from them. The people who are going to be affected by this project, that shows community support and it shows community buy-in, that people really want this project to happen. This page basically goes through each step of the public meeting requirement and makes sure that you have everything that you need in your application. So pay attention to this list really closely. This will help you to pass the threshold review. One thing we want to emphasize here is the date of your public meeting. It has to be held within 6 months of your application. That means if you held your meeting before June 5th, you need to hold another one. So it has to be within 6 months of submission of your application. You have to attach the minutes from your meeting or your application will not be accepted. You have to show that the CDBG program was explained and the 3 project categories, and also that you opened the meeting up to public comment. You have to do all of those things or your application will not move forward. This scoring sheet right here are the exact questions that we give to the selection committee when they are reviewing your application. So if you can answer all of these questions well, then your project is probably going to be doing pretty well. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if you would like copies of these scoring sheets so that you can refer to them while you're doing your application, just let us know. We can get you a copy of these sheets, but definitely review these before you submit your application. Some tips and suggestions for the project description and selection category. First of all, spend some time brainstorming. Think through all the questions someone could possibly have about your project and address them in your application. You don't want anyone to walk away with questions or to be unsure what your project is all about. Next, give your application to somebody else to read before you submit it. They're probably going to catch some things that you didn't think about, catch some typos that you didn't. It's always a good idea to have somebody else read over your work. Next, the selection committee is going to be reading through a lot of applications. Anything that you can do aesthetically to make your application easier to read is going to benefit you. So use italics, underlining, boldface, lots of paragraph breaks, all that stuff, anything that's going to make it easier for them to read your application. Use 12-point font. We have asked them specifically to look and see whether or not you're using 12-point type. That could probably get you an extra point or two just to do that. We don't want it to be too small. Again, we just want your application to be easy to read. Next, use complete sentences. Clearly define terms that might be unfamiliar, so especially acronyms. We here at DCRA, the Division of Community and Regional Affairs, have about 1,000 acronyms that we're familiar with that other people have no idea about. So make sure, just assume that people don't know what you're talking about. Next, if you're going to put out some generalizations, support it with specific examples. So for instance, if you're going to say that your community needs a health clinic because people aren't getting the care that they need when they need it, you could say, for example, one community member had this emergency. She wasn't able to get the support she needed in town and had to wait a week and then fly to Anchorage, and her condition got worse. You want to really drive home your generalizations with some really specific instances about how your current conditions have specifically affected your community. Next, you want to avoid personal opinions. Try to take yourself out of the application. Don't use the first person, I, me, or my. You want to just rely on facts. And like I said before, proposals with the fewest number of problems or questions are the ones that get funded.